Hi, I'm Joy, and this is my very first Beyond Your Type video. And I'm here today with Chris. Chris, how does it feel to know that you're my first?
Interesting. Well,
All right, well, I understand that you have a bit of a moral dilemma with a friend, and you'd like to talk about that today. So, first of all, if you'd like to introduce yourself, any types that you might know in various typology systems, Socionics, MBTI, and then just tell me a little bit about the situation that you're looking at.
okay. So probably LIE, Socionics, probably ENTJ, MBTI. And so that could be a little bit relevant. Maybe 3 in Enneagram, something like that. So the situation. So there's this guy, and I work with him like it's a local bar. Like I worked there for a little bit. I was just like a cook or something, trying to save money, buy a car, stuff like that. And near my school, and worked with him. He's pretty much an okay guy. Dwarf actually, Ian Dwarf. So interesting detail. I mean, we were kind of friends, kind of not. Like we weren't really good friends, but like he was just a guy I knew at work who was pretty much nice to me. And
So, a friendly acquaintance, basically.
yeah, I would say that. We never went out or anything like that. So
Okay.
yeah, it was just work. So anyway, maintained a little bit of contact. Some various stuff happened. Once he borrowed some money from me, didn't really return it. But I thought maybe that's because he didn't have a lot of money himself. So I don't know. But anyway,
How much money was it?
it was $60.
Okay.
It wasn't a huge amount, but
Yeah. Okay.
it was enough for me to notice it. So
Well, yeah.
yeah. Anyways, so I hear that he's homeless from himself, and according to him, it's because like his roommate didn't come up with a payment, and because she couldn't hold down a job, so he got evicted basically. So now he's on the street, and so then I felt really bad about that, and I was like, well, maybe I should offer the guy, a place to stay and let him in. And yeah, that's pretty much where I was at.
I just fucked up the video. I'm sorry.
Oh, what happened?
I messed up the screen. You know what? There's a way to edit these. Maybe I can just edit it out. Otherwise, we're just gonna be like, Joy. That's so silly. That was so Joy of you. All right, we're gonna keep rolling. Okay. All right. So it was no fault of his own that he ended up being homeless, basically. So where's he been staying if he's homeless?
He has been staying on the street.
All right. Just like park bench kind of a thing?
Yeah, by his own account.
Okay. All right. And so, he's not just, out crashing with friends and, charming people into letting him couch surf or whatever.
He says that everybody's closed their door to him or something like that, and it's just him and his backpack, and he says he has friends in Plano, but he didn't want to go there unless he has to. He thinks he can find a place to stay where he's at, because this is where his work is at.
Right. All right. And what type do you suppose he is?
I think he's SEE, possibly SLE, but most definitely very, very strong and prominent SE.
All right. All right. So this is what I'm thinking initially here. Well, first of all, the fact that he borrowed money from you and didn't pay you back, kind of that would stand out to me as an indication of character, because all right, let's say that he just can't afford to pay it back to you. I find it kind of unlikely that he wouldn't have known that he wouldn't be able to pay it back when he asked for the loan. And I mean, there's been times when I've had to borrow money from people and didn't get it back to them as fast as I wanted to, so I don't want to judge that too harshly. But yeah, well, it's a detail worth noting. And then the other thing that's weird here is that he doesn't have people that are like, oh my God, you're homeless, come stay on my couch, you can crash here for a month or whatever. Especially as an extroverted sensing lead. Like those types are going to have really wide social networks. They're going to know a ton of people. They're going to have like friendly acquaintances and friends all over the place. And they're like, if you're someone that doesn't screw people over and you find yourself in trouble and you have a lot of friends, they take care of you. They do say, well, come crash with me, like, it's fine, just until you get back on your feet or whatever. So the fact that he is like literally sleeping outside because he doesn't have that is telling that there's something about the situation that isn't quite right. So then the other thing that comes to mind is, like, okay, so he's telling you this sob story. It's no fault of my own. My roommate screwed us over. I ended up getting kicked out. It's not my fault. Does he tend to have a lot of stories like that? Stories where he didn't do anything wrong and just got completely screwed over by like every person he's ever known?
Only his adoptive parents and the foster care system, but in that case, it's very believable because everybody tells bad stories about foster care.
Yeah. So it's not like he's just full of stories of like all these people who have wronged him and he's like been a victim in all of them.
No, that's not how he wants to portray himself at all. He carries himself as like want to be successful and like, everybody likes him and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
But no, he doesn't have a lot of stories like that, no.
All right. Is he like new to the area? Like he hasn't lived in the area long and just doesn't know a lot of people?
Oh wait, I forgot. No, when he got, he did get fired from the job that we worked at mutually. Like, I quit before that, but he did get fired from there. And, yeah, he did have, like, a sob story about that. But from other people, I knew that it was about some other issues, so.
Okay.
I actually don't know how new he is to the area. I think he went to Plano for high school. Of course, people aren't going to know where that is. It's a city which is about like maybe an hour.
You don't need to like give away your location. That's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a city that's like an hour from you, though.
Well,
What
yeah.
you're trying to get here. Okay. But you did say that he said that like everybody had closed their door on him or something like that.
Yeah, that's what he said pretty much.
Okay. All right. And tell me about your situation. Like, do you live alone? Do you live with roommates? Do you, have a lot of valuable stuff laying around your house? That sort of thing?
Right. So I have 3 roommates technically, but then there's 2 other people who stay over right now because they do for various reasons. So, no, there's not actually a lot of space. It's extremely crowded.
All right. So, like, so that's kind of just a thing that your roommates do. They just like bring home strays and let them crash there. So, like, it wouldn't be a huge deal if you did it too.
No, well, that's not exactly the arrangement. It's more so like, well, they're international students, right? And they seem to have a thing going on to where, like, I don't know, they take a dislike to whoever their roommate is where they were technically assigned to. And so they'll, like, stay with a friend for that whole semester. And, like, so one of the people who's staying with us who doesn't actually pay rent right now or necessarily, they're not really part of the agreement. Well, at the last place we were staying, he was the one who was inviting the current leaseholder to stay with him for the semester because he didn't like who he was with at that time. So it's kind of a, social favor kind of arrangement.
Okay. How do you think your roommates would respond if you were like, hey, I've got this this dude here who he doesn't have a place to crash. Like, I'm just gonna let him. I mean, I don't even know what kind of arrangements that you would have for him, but like crash on the couch, or sleeping bag on the floor, or just something to keep him from being outside, essentially. Like, how do you think they would respond to that if you did that?
They would respond. I don't think that they would like it, but they wouldn't. They wouldn't dislike it to the point where they were like, "No, you can't do that. You don't do that." They would. They would see what kind of a person he was, and I think that they would decide based on that. Which that actually is my worry, because I am afraid that he's maybe on drugs or taking various drugs, and so.
Okay, so when you say drugs, are we talking like, he likes to shroom every once in a while and he smokes weed every day? Or are we talking like the harder, like much more addictive things?
I would say both. He was definitely always high. For sure, he was always high.
Mm-hmm.
And his other thing, yeah, he definitely took harder drugs. He definitely did. He took cocaine. He said that himself. He did that. I don't know about a lot, but he definitely did it on occasion. And he probably did some other stuff harder than that. Like I visited back the other day, and one of the waitresses was like, "Yeah, we found him passed out in the bathroom this one time, and he'd been doing something pretty rough to get him to that state." So yeah, he did some pretty rough stuff.
So, I mean, having like an addiction and having, like being caught in that, and that's like your life, like that's how you live. You are always looking for how you're gonna come up with money to, get your next fix of whatever it is one thing, but like someone who parties too hard is, I mean, this is still kind of I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to say to you here, but there's I think there's a difference between the two. Somebody who is an addict and who is, like I said, always trying to figure out where it's going to come from the next time. Somebody in that situation is like not even really themselves in a way. Like their addiction is doing their thinking for them, and they can justify things you can't imagine based on like what their brain, their addiction is like screaming in their brain and saying like it's okay to do this. They would pretty much screw over anybody, and they're just not themselves if they're in that place. So that's one kind of situation. And then, like I said, the other kind is somebody who's just like reckless, parties too hard, does things on occasion, but they're not like, always like on something or trying to find something. You know what I mean? Like especially like particular, like if it's heroin, that's a really big deal, or something along those lines. So I don't know. Do you have a sense for like which kind of situation he's dealing with in regards to like addiction versus partying too hard, sort of a thing?
Well, when I knew him, I would say it was more of the latter. Um, yeah, I would say it was more the latter. He was definitely still pretty much keeping it together. So his problems came for other reasons. It wasn't because he was hooked on the drugs. He was doing the drugs because he thought he could get away with it, pretty much.
Okay.
He's having fun and going out to parties and stuff. His former roommate did tell me, no, I don't think he's on drugs anymore, but I don't know, she might feel guilty because she's the reason he couldn't make up the rent, according to him. So I don't know if I can believe that or not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that you even doubt that much is a little bit telling about your overall feel for the situation too. So, what was he like as an employee? Would he like steal stuff from the restaurant and that sort of thing?
No, he didn't steal.
Okay.
Now, his roommate, who told me that, I doubt, well, she was fired for stealing, actually, a lot. But no, besides the loan he didn't return, he did seem to have some sort of moral code, and he kind of cared about keeping the place running okay, and like he wasn't one of those people that just says doesn't give a fuck. No, he wasn't like that.
Okay. All right. Good deal. And tell me about the climate where you live, because I mean, like if I knew somebody who had to sleep outside tonight in my city, I would feel like I need to do something, like whether they stay with me or I find a different solution for them. Because if somebody slept outside in my city tonight, there's a really good chance they'd actually die because it's going to be extremely cold. And I think that should be a consideration as well. My understanding, though, is that you live in a much warmer climate.
Yeah, it's North Texas, so it's about like 50s. At night, what's it dropping down to? Certainly not freezing.
All right. So like basically, it's not actually a dangerous situation aside from the fact that like he could get jumped in his sleep or something like that. But there's no like freeze to death concerns here or anything like that.
I don't think so. It couldn't be good for him in the long run, but I don't think he's gonna just like kick the bucket instantly or something. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think it's good for anybody to, be homeless. I'm pretty sure that's like ill-advised health-wise. But I understand what you're saying. Like, I know this person that's in this shitty situation, and there's something that I could probably do to help, and it feels like it would be wrong for me not to do what I could do, especially considering, somebody that I like. It's not just a stranger, it's somebody that I know, somebody that I have a little bit of history with. But I think in this situation, you certainly have no obligation to help him at all. And you would probably be putting yourself in a bad position by letting him stay there. His character, as far as like, would he cause trouble? Would he steal stuff? Not just from you, but from your roommates and their friends. All of that kind of thing, like, is all just pointing really strongly to no here. No, you should not let him crash with you. Like, I wouldn't even let him crash one night, quite honestly. This, like, it feels bad when you can't do something, or can do something and won't do something to help out somebody who's in a bad situation. But he's responsible for his own situation, even if the story that he's telling you is true, that his roommate didn't pay the rent and got him kicked out because of that or whatever. Even if that story is actually what happened, like, he still picked her to be his roommate, and like, he still let her handle paying the rent, and he still made choices that brought him to where he was. And he'll be all right if he is somebody who, if he's somebody who can, what am I trying to say here? One way or another, he's responsible for his own situation. He's going to need to find his own way out of it. And, you might be able to find some resources for him. Like, maybe there's something, some community resource or something like that that you could put him in touch with. But I do not think you need to feel guilty not letting him stay with you. What do you think?
I mean, it's reasonable. It's reasonable. The point about him making the choices of who he chose to stay with is something that hadn't really occurred to me. I was just sort of taking that for granted. But that's a very good point. I mean, it's not something that I want to, that I would like to continue, but yeah, there's a couple of places I could point him to. There's a homeless shelter very locally. That's just like I don't know, it just sounds terrible to tell someone, hey, you know, you are aware there's a homeless shelter. It just sounds terrible. That's why I'm uncomfortable with it. But yeah, it's just the risks are pretty high. So yeah.
And you know, maybe there's other things that you could do to help him out. Like for example, maybe like, do you feel comfortable giving him a job reference? Like, could you try to get a job for him? Like, that might help out his situation. Or, like, if you know somebody in the area who's looking for a roommate, you know, maybe that could be the kind of thing that you do for him. Or, you know, if he's, you could give him food. You know, is he hungry? Does he have food to eat? You could certainly do that. I wouldn't give him money. But, I mean, you could give him food. You could give him, like, I don't know, I actually have like stuff that I keep in my car to give to panhandlers when I drive past them. Like certain times of the year I see a lot of that. And the thing that they're always like super happy about is when I give them socks. Like I'll just roll down the window and I'll be like, do you want some socks? And they're like, thank you, thank you. They get so excited about those socks. So I mean, that's something that you could consider, or like you know, like travel size shampoo bottles or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, there are things that you can do without actually like letting him into your house. I wouldn't even let him come take a shower at your house, honestly. Like, this guy sounds kind of shady to me.
Yeah, I can do some stuff in that direction. Yeah, I got a couple ideas. I can, there's a couple places he might be able to stay that are open 24 hours and you could get admittance to, and it doesn't close, and there is couches there, so he can catch some sleep there maybe. So I'm thinking of like, we got a 24-hour library, so yeah.
Well, I think they usually do their best to keep homeless people out of places like that, but you know, I'm sure you know, if he's like, how long has it been since he's been homeless? Is this just like the past few nights, or the past week, or how long?
I think it's only been about like maybe 3 days, 4 days. It's not long.
Okay. Well, I mean, as an extroverted sensing lead, he is probably pretty resourceful when he wants to be. I'm sure he knows about the homeless shelter, and I'm sure he's like thought of like different places that he can like hang out and maybe catch some sleep, or you know, get a shower, or, you know, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I don't feel like you actually really have to do anything here. And the reason that I was asking about, like, if he always has a story about how he was the victim in, like, every situation, and doesn't have people who, well, you know, in his own words, everybody's, you know, what did he say? Turn his back on him, or, like, put him out, or like whatever. Those things right there are red flags for him being like possibly even a sociopath or something like that. Because the sob story, like how like all these bad things happened and none of them were his fault, and like everybody has screwed him over, and you know, not taking responsibility for any of it. And then like not having anybody to fall back on. Those things speak very strongly to somebody who screws people over and over again. And yeah, obviously I'm not a mental health professional, and even if I were, I couldn't like give you a diagnosis just from hearing this little bit of information about somebody. But those are red flags though to me, and I've known people like that, and they absolutely have issues and end up getting themselves kicked out of places constantly and find themselves homeless or always looking for a place to crash. And there's a reason that people don't let them stay, like people who don't screw people over, people who will help out around the house and not cause drama, and pitch in when they can, and are pleasant company and don't steal things and don't get drunk and puke all over the living room. Like people who are like decent people to have around tend not to find themselves in this situation. So I would say it's probably a good idea not to be too close to this guy either. I mean, you're describing some red flags here.
That makes sense.
All right. Is there anything else about it that still kind of bugs you, or anything that you're wondering about?
I mean, I think overall it makes sense to me. There was a couple points that I was not too sure about, but I guess the main thing is I just want to make sure you do your part to be a decent person. So
sure.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much resolved.
All right, awesome. Yeah, you do not have to worry at all that you are not being a nice person or being a bad person because you're not helping this guy out. Just the fact that you care enough to worry about it and ask about it and really think it through and try to make the most moral decision, that in itself says a lot about you, I think. So that's awesome. So anything else then?
I think that's good.
All right, awesome. Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, how do we stop this? There we go.